Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm playing with a whole bunch of All in Create goodies. This is the All in Create washi tape sets that create a little image, and I'm going to create a little art journal page with it using some stencils and stamps and a few distress ink products. First of all, I'm breaking up the washi tape into 4 sections so that the picture all lines up. Find it easier to tear it up into the 4 sections and then put them down on my desk and then line them up from bottom to top so that I can create a composition where my image is sort of sitting exactly where I need it to be, so it's not floating in the air. So this is actually the one that's got all the library books in it and the bottles. I'm working on watercolour paper, which is a nice surface to work on, and then I'm going to stick it back in my journal. So I've torn it out of the journal and I'll stick it back in. First of all, a little bit of peel paint around the edge of the surface so that I can frame the image, and I've just applied that with a sponge. Oxide or distress ink, doesn't really matter which one you use, I just happen to have that one handy. Blend it in. Watercolour paper loves distress ink, it blends beautifully, so always a good product to have handy when you're doing any kind of distress work. Now I'm giving it a light spritz just to moisten the surface. And what I've got over here in my palette is a little bit of ground espresso stain, and I'm going to dilute it a little bit and then put it down onto my surface. And the surface is already wet, so it will help to blend it a little bit, and then I'm going to spritz it as well, you'll see in a minute, just to move it around and get it to blend in with the rest of the page. Now obviously where the washi tape is, it's going to resist a little bit, so my whole idea is to try and blend it in as close as possible so the washi tape starts to become part of the page and embed into the colours. Right, so the next thing I do is apply a few splatters. Dilute it again. The ground espresso is really quite strong, so I've diluted it a little bit just to place it down, and that's again on a wet surface, so it's kind of going to blend into the background, a bit more spritzing. I'm saving the corner there on the right hand side because I'm going to apply some rub-ons from All in Create as well to match, just to provide a little bit of interest into the background. And remember too, when you're layering up colours, to always give it a dry off first and then layer your next colour. Otherwise you just keep moving the same colour down on the base, and you're not going to end up with any variation of colour or texture on your page. So always give it a good dry in between and then smush on some more colours or splatter on some more colours, and then that's how you get different depth and level of colour on when you're using one colour on the same colour on top of itself all the time. A little bit more blending, bring the green back into the page a bit more where I've lost it. Okay, so now I'm taking out the set of rub-ons. These were a bunch of different styles that came out with All in Create. There's 2 sheets in the packet. I've just used one corner that's got some matching coloured elements, and I've just roughly cut them out. Make sure your page is as dry as possible, because you'll see as I try to apply in one corner, it's a little bit damp still, and the transfer or the rub-on wouldn't actually go down. And so I had to then try and lift it from the other side. So that's a little bit of a reminder to those that are not familiar with using rub-ons over other surfaces. Make sure your surface is nice and dry and porous. So you can see here where I try and lift it and it won't move. So I try and come from the other side and that lifts it up. And I've overlapped it onto the washi as well, so you can see a little bit of the design. You'll see that in the closer pics at the end of the actual little video here. But I've overlapped it with the washi so that it all becomes connected and one piece rather than all separate elements. Next, I've done a little bit of stenciling. I've just applied a little bit of texture paste to my palette knife, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of textured interest on 2 sides. That's another All in Create stencil. Quite a handy little one if you like rings and splatters and splodges. Okay, and then next I'm going to add a little bit of stamping. So just using archival black, it'll go over everything. It'll dry over rub-ons and washi tape and paints as well. Some of the other inks, they don't dry quite as well, they'll smudge, whereas at least if you use the good archival ink, that it will dry and remain permanent over surfaces that aren't necessarily porous. And again, overlapping onto my washi tape and my other design surfaces, so that everything starts to look a little bit blended and cohesive. Now, everything doesn't have to have a place of its own on the page. It looks so much better when everything sort of overlaps each other. And now I'm going to come in, this is just an old Tim Holtz stamp that I've got with a little bit of text in the background, so I'm sure that you've got plenty of stamps at home that have got loads of text on them or little distressed elements, and I'm just tapping that over with a little bit of the ground espresso oxide. Oxides are great because when you're stamping with them, they remain opaque over the surface of other colours. And I'm also doing the same on the die cut leaves, again from the All in Create series, where they've released these beautiful leaves. And by stamping over them, again, it just adds a little bit of interest, gives them a little bit of variation. And you'll see later on, I come back and I actually apply, I've actually just sprayed these first of all on a previous day with some different distress inks to give them sort of a fall kind of, I guess, autumn effect. And then I've stamped over the top, and then I actually come back and apply a little bit of ground espresso over the top of the edges, so that it again blends them in, makes them look more distressed, and they don't sort of stand out as obviously on the page, but actually become part of the cohesive design, I suppose, of the page that I'm creating. I'm just applying a little bit more ground espresso so that it catches onto the texture paste there. Again, it's a very strong colour, dilute it down a little bit. Just get it moving. A few more splatters as well. And when that dries off, it doesn't look as obvious, it just becomes another dimension of colour on top of the same colour. And here I am just inking around the edges. I tend to try and always work in odd numbers, 3s and 5s, 7s. So I've done 5 leaves here, and I'm going to cluster them 3 on one side and 2 on the other. And what I'm trying to do is obviously disguise the edges of where the washi tape design has come into contact with the background colours, so that everything starts to be drawn into one sort of canvas or one kind of image. So a little bit of the ground espresso around the edges, and then once they're placed down, they're basically creating a frame around the washi tape. So hopefully that's drawing your eye to the image that I want you to look at, which is the central washi tape image. A little bit more ground espresso around the edges just to frame it up once again. And you don't see it on camera, but I come in a little bit later when I apply my title, and I actually just put in a little bit of pastel pencil underneath the washi tape design at the base there, just to create a little bit of shadow and tie it to the bottom of the page, so that it again is grounded and makes it appear like it belongs to the page and isn't sort of floating on its own. So thanks for watching today, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you like my little project. I'm going to put links down at the bottom of this tutorial with the products that I've used. And also, if you've got any questions, feel free just to post them on the below on the video, and I can answer them for you. And when in a moment I'll show you the final project with a little quote that I've put on as well, and a close-up, because I think I've got this image a little bit too close to where I'm working, so you're looking at the bottom. Unfortunately, sorry about that. But hopefully you get the idea. And I had quite a lot of fun making this. This is the second time I made it. The first time I made it a little bit dark, and I came back and made it a second time. So, you know, first time's a practice, second time's perfection. So hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've learnt a few things, and we would love to see you in one of our classes one day, or perhaps you could give us some feedback on whether you'd like to see more tutorials like this.